Okay, I have a question for you all now. My question is that, let's suppose I have a state psi, and I have a measurement. Let's just go back to the third postulate, m sub m, that's a valid quantum measurement. And I want to compute what the probability of p of m in this state is, getting outcome m. And now let's suppose I have a different state that is e to the I theta times the state psi. Do you remember the, what is it called, the polar form of a complex number? R e to the I theta. So if r is equal to 1, you agree that this is still a valid quantum state, right? The norm of this will still be 1 because the norm of this complex number is 1. So I've just multiplied by e to the I theta, some other complex number with unit norm. So this is still a valid quantum state. Same set of measurement outcomes, measurement operators, m sub m. What is the probability of getting measurement outcome m in this case? Let's see what happens. It might take a second to work through this, but this we're just going to use our third postulate, right? There's nothing else to do. So this is psi, dagger, psi. And this I'm going to do the same thing. It's just the psi has changed. So you can think about this as a psi prime if you like, but I'll just write it all in one line. So it's going to be the bra version of psi, and then e to the minus I theta. Why am I writing e to the minus I theta here? Conjugate. Exactly right, yep. So I took the complex, the Hermitian conjugate of this whole thing. So I reverse the order, and I have to remember to take the complex conjugate of the number out in front. That is e to the minus I theta. Now I just continue using the measurement postulate, so dagger, and then on the right, it's just going to be this state e to the I theta times psi. Can anyone make a statement now about how to relate these two?
Because e is a constant, we could just move it, right?
Exactly right. This is a number, and so I can put it anywhere I want. This is also a number. So what happens if I multiply these two numbers together? Just get 1. So this is exactly equal. So this is psi, dagger, times the state psi. That was this p of m. Okay. This introduces you to the concept of phase, which is, we've seen it before, but now, okay, I'll formally say what it is. Chapter 2.2.7, all about phase. So we love to use the word phase in quantum. It's overused, and it can mean multiple things. It's one of my least favorite words personally because of that. It can mean multiple things, but it's fun to say and it sounds cool, so it has that going for it. In this case, we call this e to the I theta a global phase. It's a complex number with unit norm with size 1. That is in front of the state. So definition, a global phase is a number e to the I theta in front of a state. So we're thinking about this as our global phase here. And we, in a lot of ways, don't care about this because you just proved a theorem that as far as measurement is concerned, global phase doesn't matter. So we have an important theorem about global phase. Global phase doesn't change measurement outcomes. Meaning that the probabilities are exactly the same, which we just showed. So as far as measurement is concerned, this state and this state are pretty much the same, and we'll often say that they are equal up to global phase. So e to the I theta times psi is equal to the state psi up to global phase. Now there is one more notion of phase which does matter, and this is of a relative phase. And this is really just contained in your example of the plus and the minus states. So these are very similar states, 0 plus 1 over root 2, 0 minus. The only difference is one of the amplitudes differs by a sign, which we're just going to generalize to a complex number. So in this case, we say that amplitudes differ by a relative phase. So if amplitude B in state psi prime is equal to A e to the I theta for amplitude A in the state psi, then we say that these amplitudes differ by a relative phase. So B and A, we say they differ by a relative phase. So two notions of phase that are important for you to know, just vocabulary. The one is very interesting because the global phase does not in any way affect measurement outcomes. And relative phase will indeed affect measurement outcomes. So now we have two uses of the word phase, which you should know. To see the example of how the relative phase affects the measurement outcome, again, I would encourage you to think about the plus and the minus states. So for the plus states, if we had measurement operators plus, plus, and minus, minus, you can see that the phase of the relative phase is crucial here because this one is parallel to this, and this one is orthogonal to this. And the reason that happens is because of the relative phase. So that's why relative phase can change measurement outcomes, but global change will never. The last thing to note is that relative phase is a basis-dependent property, as you might imagine. When we're expressing quantum states, we have to choose a basis, and that dictates what our amplitudes are. If we change that basis, then this could change. So relative phase is a basis-dependent property.